Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Want to start your own business? Well, start with the Startup Playbook by our guest, Will Herman. Will, thanks for being with us.
Great to be here, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Now, Will, I love your book, but you start out, and you're very fair to tell us, you started out with 2 failing ventures. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd actually call them miserable failures.
Okay. Can you give us a little idea of those?
Sure. Well, the first company, my first startup was right out of college. Actually, it was even before I was out of college. I quit college to join a startup in just outside of Philadelphia, and it was an early tech company in the healthcare business, and everything seemed to be going gangbusters. The company seemed to be growing. We moved into bigger office space. We got more computers. We seemed to have more customers. And then about 18 months into my tenure there, we all got together, and the management said, we're closing down. We're basically, for all intents and purposes, bankrupt. And raised my hand, said, this can be a learning experience, I suppose. What went wrong? What's the problem? And nobody could explain it. They really didn't even know themselves how this company went off the rails. I then, thinking I could do it better without any real experience and thinking I could do it better, I started a company in a similar market, and again, healthcare computing. And I funded it myself out of my own pocket, and I worked my ass off, and I bought computers, and I got customers, and I started to grow. And 18 months later, I also went bankrupt, and learned the hard way of why the first company probably went under. It was the same reason the second one went under, was simple cash flow issues. That you got to understand how cash works in a business. If you don't understand how cash works, you are doomed to failure. And after that, I put my tail between my legs and said the startup thing's not going to work for me, and I went and worked for a large company for a few years.
Now, of course, it's an unpleasant experience at the time, but honestly, as an author of the book, I think that makes you even more impressive because you've been there. You know the reasons for failure. Sometimes somebody's a success and we say, maybe they just started at the right moment or they turned around and the right person was behind them or next to them. You know, sometimes fate just enters in. Everything clicks. But having gone through the difficulties, you know where these problems are, where the bumps in the road is going to be, and anyone thinking of getting involved with a startup, it would be almost absurd to start without your book, The Startup Playbook, because you've been there, you've gone through it, and you warn them what to watch for and where the problems are going to come up, or most likely the problems. So what could be better?
I appreciate that. And I'll say that while those were my only 2 big failures, lots of little failures along the way, but those are my only 2 big failures. I've advised hundreds of other companies. Most of them have failed. I won't attribute the failure to my involvement with them, but most companies fail. 9 out of 10 actually fail. So
it's not us. We don't have to feel really. I mean, this is going to happen. Let's be honest, right? It's like the team. No team goes 160-0. They're going to lose some games, even the best teams.
Absolutely, that's absolutely right. It's not to say that it's unavoidable. It just says that the odds are against you, and so you should do everything you possibly can to glean the wisdom, experience, knowledge of everyone and everything around you to try to avoid the pitfalls along the way.
Now, Will, how would you define a startup for us?
That's a really good question. So the way we define a startup, it turns out that there's no one solid definition of a startup. But we define a startup. We define three types of small businesses. One of them is a startup. I'll go through all three of them. There's a nonprofit. We all know what a nonprofit is. It's a company that is formed and run to generally do good things and not make money along the way. Types of companies like this don't really scale. They can grow, but they don't really scale very well. Then we have local businesses, and this is like a local bakery, a dry cleaner, an auto mechanic, might be very entrepreneurial as a person or as a group of people and start a business. But the way the company is built is not built to scale. It's not built to grow quickly, to take investment dollars and to return capital at the end of a reasonable period. And generally speaking, those companies stay local. There might be a few outlets, but they stay geographically local. And then there's the third type of company, which is a startup. And a startup is built to scale and return money to its investors. That's how it's built. So that means a startup actually also takes money from investors.
Now, when you say scale, just define that, because what does that mean, built to scale?
So scale means, again, it's our terminology here, but scale means that it grows in multiple dimensions. It may grow geographically. It certainly continues to grow in revenue. It grows in people. And it expands in a way that is repeatable over time. So it might be a large company with sales offices around the world and distribution around the world. It might be a franchise that either sells or creates installations in multiple geographic places, and it absolutely means that revenues continue to grow over time.
Now, Will, I'd like to let our audience know, if they didn't hear it at the beginning of the show, our guest is Will Herman. His book is The Startup Playbook. And if anyone is interested in startup, or if your son is graduating from Harvard and he comes home and says, instead of a present, can I have $2 million for my startup? Get him $2 million minus the price of the book and give him the Startup Playbook, because it's going to save him a lot of errors and mistakes that other people have made. And they've been there. Will just told you he had 2 failures, and he knows what it's like. He's gone through those bumps in the road, and that's really how most of us learn, from the tough experiences in life. Will, tell us where we can get the book and the website.
You can get the book on Amazon, but it's probably easiest to just go to our website, startup-playbook.com. That's startup-playbook.com. That'll also have links it'll give you a complete description of the book, allow you to download a free chapter if you want to check it out, and links to Amazon to buy either the Kindle version or the hardcover version.
Now, we hear the word founder. Are founders the idea people? Do they make good day-to-day leaders? Are they the managers, president, CEO, or is that a special category? Is that guy or the girl who sits there and just, they're kind of ingenious. They see things, we can all be looking at the same thing, and they just put it together differently, and they'll come up with a new app or a new device or something. But do they stop there, or do they continue?
So we don't think about a founder outside of a founding team. We believe that every successful startup needs to have a founding team. And the reason a team is needed is because, well, one, it's so insanely hard. I don't know why any one person would want to take on the effort of creating a company by themselves. But even so, no one person has all the skills required, all the skills and personality styles and passion and curiosity and levels of interest that are required to optimize the chances for success in a company. So a team of people put together very thoughtfully so that each one fills the holes of the other or the rest of the group is the best way to create that founding unit that can build the best possible company.
I'm sorry, Will, I was just going to ask, so are you saying, do we want the idea person, the really good manager, CEO person, the accountant, and the salesperson, just to use a brief example? Is that people with different skills?
Sure. That's one dimension of looking at it, people, different skills, but also people with different communication styles. If you look at sort of another way of how people can fill in holes of other people's styles. Like, we don't believe that a CEO needs to be an extrovert or that the whole team needs to be full of extroverts, that introverted people can do just fine. We also believe in a third criteria, introvert, extrovert, and something we call influencer, which we think strong influencers are also an important part of the team. And also there's sort of the functional breakdown, and then there's communication breakdown, and there's probably an emotional breakdown too. People who are insanely risk averse to all the way to people who are crazy risk, seekers. And a balance on the team is always good. Maybe not complete risk aversion, but a balance of that in that criteria too makes a lot of sense.
So, am I hearing you correct, Will? Like, let's say three of us are sitting there having a hamburger some evening, and we come up with this great idea. We think it's a great idea. Let's start so-and-so company. That's going to be our startup. We get a few people to buy into it and saying, yeah, that does sound pretty good. I'll put a little money into it. But are you saying we should also go out and get that complementary skill person that can add to us and not limit it to three of us, but maybe we need 5, 6, or 7 as the founders, the startup people, because those complementary skills would really give us a better chance for success?
That's exactly what I'm saying. In fact, I would do that before I went and raised money, because a good team sells to investors better. 7 might be a large group. You ought to be able to find it in 5, let's say. A good mix of people, but that's exactly as you said it. It's filling in those holes, making it really solid, and then working on the idea and the execution of it together makes you a great team.
Now, we all think of it as the great idea that we have to come up with some brilliant idea, and all of a sudden, aha, I've got it. And maybe it's going to be pink spinach or green ketchup or whatever thrills us. But you take issue with that, am I correct?
That is correct. We think the odds of anyone coming up with a unique breakthrough idea are really small, and they shouldn't be a criteria you have in starting your company. There's a lot of really smart people out there, really great teams. There's a lot of money chasing those teams. Chances are there's someone who has got a better team, is better funded, and is further along with you on a similar idea to what you come up with than you think. And we think that it's much more important to execute well on an okay idea than it is to have a unique killer idea that's different from everything else out there.
Will we want to find out more about the Startup Playbook and what we should do and how to avoid errors? But at this point in the show, we like to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success. My name is Bill Horan. The show is produced at the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. We'll be right back after this brief intermission.
Well, Jason, I've got to tell you, you're pretty much everything this company is looking for in an entry-level candidate.
Great.
Your resume isn't quite what we're used to, but you've got a fantastic work ethic.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed by how you carry yourself.
So, should we talk about the job?
What? The job? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I have no way of recruiting or even meeting you. This interview didn't happen.
It may sound ridiculous, and that's because it kind of is. There's a huge pool of talent your company is missing out on. Meet the grads of life. Who are they? Talent worth knowing about.